Thank you. Excited to be here today. We're covering Banishing Your Burnout. And I want to start by just saying that this is an incredibly important topic, right? You're here most likely because you're a nonprofit leader, an executive director, someone who is grappling with the immense need of the sector and also balancing how do we do this work in a sustainable way. I'm very passionate about this as a leadership development coach and consultant. It's something I have been affected by and impacted by. I've done a lot of thinking about it and have coached many leaders through their own experiences of burnout to identify ways to be sustainable. So we're going to jump in. A little bit about me. I'm a consultant, trainer, and executive coach with 24 years of leadership experience. Amanda Silver Consulting is my firm. And I partner with foundations and large member-based organizations to design custom leadership development programs, as well as executive directors and their teams directly through coaching, leadership, and training to help support team building and culture change. I do that in a very particular way, which is important for what we're talking about. It's through the intersection of emotional intelligence and our ability to execute as leaders that we really achieve our most effective impact. And so I'm always looking at the intersection of heart and mind. And I want to introduce my framework for thriving high performance teams because it relates to burnout. When you think about how do we create conditions for high performing teams, we are looking at factors that address burnout, particularly in the middle. You see there belonging, inclusion, and equity. To get to that kind of condition, 3 pillars are critical: resilient leadership, transparent communication, and healthy systems. So burnout is actually an interesting topic because all 3 of those pillars relate to burnout. Today, we are focusing particularly on the individual level of resilient leadership. Like I said, burnout happens not only on the individual level, but it happens on a team level and a systems level as well. Today, our focus is the individual level, but I wanted to say that because it's important, right? And we're starting at the individual level because that is the place where we have the most agency. And so even if we're working in a system or on a team where there are features that contribute to burnout, we can do things for ourselves regardless of those environments, right? So let me talk first about common causes of burnout. And I would love for you to think about this yourself as you're listening to me. Burnout, it rarely comes from one big moment, as I'm sure you can attest to. It comes from often an accumulation of small, unsustainable patterns that occur over time. And in my work with my cohorts and executive directors, when I ask how people are really doing, I often hear a wide range of responses, right? Some leaders tell me they feel like they're constantly behind. Others say they're functioning, but they're exhausted. Some feel like they're doing the work, but they're completely disconnected from it. And where they once loved the work, they're now feeling very distant or apathetic towards it. And that resonates for me. That's something that happened to me. Others say they're holding it together, but just barely. If any of those statements resonate for you, I would just say those are indicators of burnout, different degrees of burnout, right? So we want to pay attention to how we're talking about our work because we may not realize that we're experiencing it, but in the ways that we talk about it, it actually indicates that we are approaching levels of unsustainability that are really important for us to pay attention to. And so here you can see some of the most common causes of burnout: chronic urgency, insufficient recovery time, lack of supportive systems for yourself, emotional labor, and trauma exposure. Many of us working in the nonprofit sector are helping to support others who are in deep need. And over time, that can cause a lot of secondary trauma that is important to notice and pay attention to. Blurred boundaries between our identities and our roles. So many of us go into nonprofit work because we care so deeply and passionately, which is a huge strength. And the shadow side of that is that we have a really hard time saying no or letting go of things or creating boundaries. So that's something we want to pay attention to also. I want to talk about when we look at how do I address burnout, we want to think about it from 3 different levels, right? The level of beliefs, the level of behaviors, what are we doing or not doing that might contribute to burnout. Beliefs is really what are we thinking, what kind of internal mindsets are we holding that either contribute or don't contribute to burnout. And then finally, this piece around systems. What are the systems that we have in place for ourselves individually? What are the systems that we have in place for our teams? As I said, we're going to focus primarily on the individual level and look at beliefs and behaviors. And I'm going to share a couple of tools for you to utilize immediately for yourselves and also with your teams. So the first thing I want to talk about are beliefs that can shape burnout. Take a look at this screen and think about which of these might resonate for you. The mission comes first, always. If I don't do it, it won't get done. Rest is earned. I have not earned it. It's a privilege to do this work. Others have it enough. Others have it worse. And this one is particularly tricky because we don't even realize it's operating. But it's the feeling of lack. I'm not blank enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not effective enough. Whatever it might be, I will say from a personal level, and many leaders that I work with, I'm not good enough it can be a source of great strength for moving to excellence, but if it is not examined, it can turn into persistent habits and behaviors that lead to burnout on a regular basis. And I have seen many of my leaders actually identify that for themselves. So what I want you to do is recognize all of these beliefs come from good intentions, right? They come from commitment, from care, from responsibility. But when they are expressed in unsustainable ways, they lead to burnout. And this is why burnout is not just a time management problem, it's actually a values challenge. And so one of the exercises I'd like to introduce to you right now is a belief reset related to burnout. So the first thing I want you to think about, and if you're ever, as a precursor to looking at some of the systems and behaviors, I encourage you to always start here. What are the beliefs that are driving you when you are under pressure? Is it, no one else can do this as well as I can? Is it, I just have to get through this and then I'll get to the next thing? Underneath the belief, I then want you to think about what is the value? What is the value that's represented there? What is the positive value that's oriented towards that belief? And then what I want you to think about is what would a more sustainable belief sound like? So, for example, when we go back to the mission comes first, always, if that's a belief that you have running through your head, the value there is deep, powerful commitment to impact and making things happen, right? Like that's a value. And a reshape or a reset might be, if I don't take care of myself, I will not be able to move this mission forward. Right? So, what you want to think about is what is the belief reset that would actually lead and help support you in making more sustainable choices. So, that's the first thing I wanted to share with folks. The second thing I want to share with folks, because one of the most common things that I hear from folks about burnout is like, I have so much to do, I never get it done. My to-do list, my action items, they never end. More things get added to them. They never go away. I never feel like I'm accomplishing anything. I'm sure that resonates with some of you. It certainly is something that's come up for me. And one of the practices that can really help shift your mindset is what I like to call start with what's done. So this practice begins with when you sit down at the beginning of your day, or maybe before you even get to your desk. But this is something I actually do in practice. It's something that a coach helped me figure out how to do to shift my mindset. Before you start your day, grab a notebook and a pen. I say use handwriting. Don't type this into the computer because the felt experience of writing it down really helps it sink into your brain. You take 5 minutes, and I want you to start by writing down everything you accomplished the day before. That's how you start your day, not with your to-do list that you know you're not going to accomplish, but with an understanding of all of the things that you did the day before. You just write them down. Big or small, finished, something you finished or something you moved meaningfully forward. And then you begin your day. Why does this work? It shifts your mindset from I'm always behind to I'm in motion and I'm getting things done. It helps to create closure around things that you did the day before. And it actually helps you build confidence through evidence. I have done it myself. I've seen many leaders do it as well. It's not 100% fix for burnout, but it's one of the things that we can do that doesn't take a lot of time, that can actually fully shift the way we're thinking about our work. The next thing I want to talk about is the urgency importance piece, because I kind of chose the things that I know come up the most. So our beliefs shape our behavior. And one of the most common burnout behaviors I see in leaders is living in urgency mode. So I want to be very clear. Urgency in and of itself isn't bad. And sometimes it's absolutely necessary. We know when those times are. The challenge is when urgency becomes the default, right? When something is urgent and important, absolutely you should be there. But what often happens is when we're in urgent and important mode, when we're done, because urgency has a quality, it can feel great. It can feel like super focused. You feel like active, you're making things happen. It could also, over time contribute to burnout. And what I want to emphasize here is that if you are driven by urgency, the things that are important but not urgent, like planning, reflection, leadership development, or reconnecting to purpose, they will keep getting pushed aside. And those are actually the things that you need to prevent burnout and create a sustainable way of working in your environment. So we want to actually look at, are you leading from a place of urgency or from a place of importance? And is there room to shift that? And so here is a little bit more about this. Urgency mode is often, it's reactive, it's driven by what's loudest, it feels productive, so it has a good quality feel to it. Importance is focused on what matters the most. What matters the most. It's values driven. It builds greater sustainability for you. I will just say again, urgency when it's important is also very values driven, right? So how do we get out of this? I want to invite you to think about, this is a great exercise. Set an importance goal for yourself. And the question I want you to think about is, what's one thing that would positively impact your leadership if you did it consistently week after week, right? So that thing connected to sustainability might be, if I took 10 minutes in the morning every day to make myself a cup of coffee and look out the window before I started my day, I know that would make a really big difference for myself. If I went to yoga twice a week, if I invested in planning for 2 hours every week, that would have a profound impact on the way that I approach the rest of my work, right? Those are some examples. You identify what is important for you. And then the big issue always is, well, how do we make time for this, right? You can name an importance goal, but then the issue is the behavior piece. How do we make the time for this? So I'm going to share 4 strategic questions that you can use for yourself. Your team can use it to think about team behaviors. 4 strategic questions to free up your time. Number 1, what activities could you do less of or eliminate? So I want to be clear, not all 4 of these questions are going to resonate for you or make sense for exactly where you are right now. I want you to think about the ones that do and dig in a little bit. So the first question, what activities could you do less of or eliminate? What might you delegate or share with others? What repeat activities might you be able to systematize or plan to make it easier or faster in the future? And what already existing routine could you add this to? So, for example, I am going to say, the example I want to use is writing. For me, I'm always approaching writing. It's something that's important, but it's almost never urgent, and I need to do it, right? So if I spend an hour a week just focusing in on writing, that would make a lot of sense for me. So what activities could you do less of or eliminate? I could do less of the scrolling on my email at every second of the day and batch my email differently. That would actually create a lot of headspace for me. What might I delegate or share with others? Again, this depends on where you are and who you have on your team. But for me, if I could delegate the writing, if I could actually delegate the some of the other work that I have for an hour or 2, that would free up some time for me. Repeat activities that help me systematize or plan. If I spent that hour actually coming up with a full list of blog posts topics for blog posts, then I wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel every time I sit down, right? So I could systematize actually writing out the content that I'm going to focus on for each week. So it takes less of the thinking and the kind of wishy-washiness that happens when I sit down to write. Take that out of the picture and make a system around that. And then finally, an existing routine I could add that to. I can't really think of that for writing, but you might be able to. But I would say, just from all of the science on behavior, we know that if you can tack something on to something that you're already doing, it's much easier to start that than it is if you're just starting it fresh and creating a new space in your life for it. So that's something for you to think about. And then finally, I will leave us with the last piece, I think, because it makes me happy. A practice you can use on the behavior side is finding your joy. And so what I'll share with you is, and you could do this right now, take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, if that's comfortable for you, and reflect on a moment of ease or engagement from the week. Something that maybe it gave you joy, maybe it just made you smile, whatever it is. You can take a deep breath. And then I'd love for you to use that information You can develop a 5-minute joy practice that you can use throughout the day. And you can also use it to invest in planning for a longer joy block in your week. So for me, for example, I love to dance. I don't do it as often as I could, but I love dancing. And when I did this for the first time, I was like, oh, I could dance for 5 minutes in the middle of the day when I'm in my office. Nobody's watching. That might not be appropriate for you, but that was super helpful for me. And it's a good, joy is the antidote to burnout, right? If we're having a hard time finding where our joy is, then I would encourage us to actually double down on this and spend some time creating space for that. So those are my practices. To recap, we talked about assessing burnout, beliefs, behaviors, and systems. We talked about 2 very solid belief practices, your belief reset and start with what's done. And we talked about 2 very specific behavior practices, 4 questions for free time and a practice for finding your joy. Thank you so much. If you want to stay in touch, you can DM me in LinkedIn to get a bonus leadership reset guide that you can use for you and your team. I have a free 30-minute consultation offer for anyone who participates or watches this workshop. And then finally, you can sign up for my quarterly newsletter for tips and tools and other webinars that happen. Thank you. I really appreciate having the time to work with all of you.